The sky was a bruised and angry canvas of deep greys, and the sea below was a tormented beast, a chaotic expanse of frothing whitecaps and churning turquoise. For 2 days the storm had battered the Serpent's Kiss, a sleek, formidable pirate brigantine that seemed to relish the chaos. Captain Draven stood at its helm, his figure a stoic silhouette against the maelstrom. The salt spray stung his face, a familiar sensation that no longer held any thrill. For years, he had chased fortune across these turbulent waters, his life a relentless cycle of plunder and fleeting camaraderie. But the gold felt hollow, the rum flat, and the victories empty. He was a man adrift, seeking an anchor he couldn't name. Whispers from a Port Royal merchant had reached his ears, speaking of a Spanish galleon, the Santa Ynez, carrying a legendary cache of black pearls from the Gulf of Mexico. This, he had told himself, would be the final prize, the one that would fill the void. He had waited for pearls from the islands, for a treasure that might finally give his life meaning. As the storm's fury began to wane, a distant sail appeared on the horizon. The Spanish galleon, lumbering and proud, emerged from the receding mist. Draven's heart hammered not with the usual pirate's thrill, but with a desperate, quiet hope. "Bring us alongside!" he bellowed, his voice carrying over the wind. The crew, a mix of weathered buccaneers and hot-headed young men, let out a roar. They saw a target. Draven saw a last chance at salvation. The boarding was a brutal ballet of steel and rope. The Serpent's Kiss's grappling hooks bit into the galleon's hull, and the pirates swarmed the enemy deck like a plague of locusts. Draven himself moved with a cold, detached efficiency, his cutlass a blur of motion. He didn't take pleasure in the violence. He simply executed his grim work, his focus fixed on the gilded doors of the captain's cabin. He kicked it open with a splintering crash, half expecting to see chests overflowing with glittering jewels. Instead, 2 heavily armored Spanish guards stood defiant, their hands clenched on their swords, protecting only a small, iron-bound chest. He dispatched them with a practiced, brutal grace, and the silence that followed was unnerving. The crew, their eyes wide with anticipation, gathered around, the echoes of their triumphant battle cries dying in their throats. With a heavy iron bar, Draven pried open the chest. Inside, there was no treasure, no gold, no glimmering pearls. Instead, there were 5 terrified captives, their hands bound, their eyes wide with a mixture of terror and resignation. One of them, a young woman with a wild mess of dark hair and a smattering of freckles, looked up at him. Her eyes, the color of a stormy sea, held a remarkable fire. They held fear, but also defiance, and a fierce intelligence that seemed to challenge him, to see right through his hardened exterior. "Captain!" Silas, his quartermaster and a man whose loyalty was matched only by his greed, snarled in disbelief. "What is this? This isn't a treasure, it's baggage." He spat on the deck. "They'll be lucky to fetch a handful of coins in Tortuga. We should just throw them over the side and be done with it." The crew's murmurs of agreement rippled through the air, turning to outright grumbling. They had fought a storm, and the Spanish for what they considered to be nothing. But Draven's gaze was locked on the woman. He saw not a captive, not a prize, but a person of remarkable courage. He saw a flicker of something he had long lost within himself. The pearls had been a fantasy, a shimmering dream he had chased. The stones in this chest were real, breathing, and full of life. "No," Draven said, his voice low and firm, silencing the mutinous grumbles. "They are to be treated with respect. We take them aboard the Serpent's Kiss." His crew stared, bewildered. They had waited for pearls, but a chest of stones had come instead, and Draven felt, with a clarity that shook him to his core, that he had found a far more valuable prize. The journey back to the pirate coves was fraught with tension. The crew, still muttering about the worthless cargo, treated the captives with a cold disdain. Draven, however, made it clear that any mistreatment would be met with swift punishment. He ordered the woman, Ilara, brought to his cabin. She entered, her posture still defiant, her eyes still holding that remarkable fire. The fear had not left her, but it was eclipsed by a fierce sense of purpose. "You're not like the others," she stated, her voice surprisingly steady. "They would have thrown us to the sharks for being a disappointment. You chose to protect us. Why?" Draven gestured for her to sit, and she did, a wary but curious expression on her face. "I've spent my life chasing what others call treasure," he said, the words feeling foreign and heavy on his tongue. "Gold, jewels, power. I found it all, and it's all empty. What were you to the Spanish that they held you in such a heavily guarded chest?" Ilara's eyes softened, a glimpse into the person beneath the hardened exterior. "My father is a renowned cartographer and botanist. For months he has been exploring the islands, documenting the unique flora. The Spanish captured him to force him to reveal the location of a rare orchid, one with a potent medicinal extract that can cure a fever ravaging the colonies. I was on my way to find him, to assist him, when their patrol captured me. They planned to use me as leverage. I'm not a prize, Captain. I am a tool." Draven listened intently, a newfound respect blooming within him. She wasn't an item to be traded. She was a person on a mission of her own, a quest for knowledge and healing. It was a purpose that resonated with him, a stark contrast to his own life of selfish plunder. Just as Draven felt a flicker of hope that his life could finally have meaning, a chilling cry came from the crow's nest. "Captain! The Vulture! Starboard side!" A ripple of fear ran through the ship. The Vulture was commanded by Captain Bartholomew Thorn, a man known for his brutality and cruelty. Thorn had a reputation for hunting down and destroying rival ships that carried anything less than a full haul of treasure, a rumor Draven's crew's recent frustrations had likely fueled. Thorn would see Draven's worthless prize as an invitation to seize his ship and sell its crew and cargo into slavery. "All hands to battle stations. Make for the serpent's teeth!" Draven's voice was a roar of command. He was heading for a treacherous passage of submerged coral reefs that only a few experienced captains dared to navigate. It was a risky, desperate maneuver. As Thorn's ship closed in, its cannons roaring, Ilara rushed to the deck. She had spent her life studying these waters, and her knowledge was her greatest asset. "The currents have shifted, Captain," she yelled over the din of battle. "The main channel is blocked." "Head north. There's a different passage, a narrow one, but the water's clearer there." The crew looked at Draven, their loyalty once again wavering. He could feel their doubt, but he had faith in Ilara. "North it is," he bellowed. The serpent's kiss turned sharply, a risky maneuver under heavy fire. Ilara stood at his side, her gaze fixed on the water, a living chart in her mind. "Hard to port, now to starboard!" she commanded, and Draven's ship wove through the jagged, deadly coral, narrowly avoiding certain disaster. Thorn, in his single-minded pursuit, followed their path, ignorant of the shift in the currents. His ship, a bigger, more cumbersome vessel, ran aground with a sickening crunch. Draven watched as the mast snapped, its mighty sail falling into the waves like a wounded bird. He had won, not with firepower, but with trust, and a treasure his crew had tried to throw away. They reached the hidden cove 2 days later, a secret jewel nestled in the heart of the archipelago. The cove's entrance was almost invisible, shrouded by dense mangroves and a winding channel of crystal-clear water. Stepping onto the beach, the air was thick with the scent of wild jasmine and the sweet aroma of unseen blossoms. The island was a veritable Eden, a world away from the chaos of the open sea. It was the paradise Draven had always dreamed of, but never truly believed existed. Ilara, her heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and dread, led them inland. They found a small, discreet camp, a cluster of hand-built huts hidden among the trees. An elderly man, his face a roadmap of fine wrinkles, sat quietly beside a fire. It was her father, his health frail, a prisoner of a reclusive group of islanders who had been guarding the secret of the rare medicinal orchid. They were not cruel, but they were fiercely protective of their ancestral knowledge, fearing it would be exploited for greed. Ilara approached the islanders, speaking their dialect with a fluid grace that Draven found captivating. She explained her father's peaceful mission, his years of dedicated study, and their desire to help the fever-stricken people in the colonies. Seeing her sincerity and the honorable support of Draven and his crew, the islanders, led by their elder, agreed to share their knowledge. They provided them with a precious sapling of the orchid and instructions on how to cultivate it. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and crimson, Draven and Ilara stood on the pristine beach, the gentle lapping of the waves a peaceful rhythm to their hearts. Her father was recovering, and a new life lay ahead for him, one dedicated to his research. The other captives, now free, had decided to stay on the island, a new family forged by shared hardship. "You know," Draven began, his voice barely a whisper against the sound of the surf, "I spent my life searching for things. Gold, fame, a full coffer. I always thought that's what a man like me was meant to do, that the pearls were the answer to all my problems." Ilara looked at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight that was beginning to emerge. "And what did you find instead, Captain?" A genuine, heartfelt smile spread across Draven's face. "A chest of stones," he said. "And I realized that they weren't stones at all. They were something far more valuable. You were a purpose, a new horizon, a reason to fight for something more than just survival. You are the true treasure." He took her hands in his calloused palms, a stark contrast to her soft ones, a symbol of their two different worlds converging. The pearls were a myth, a hollow promise. "You are the real thing." Draven made her a promise, not one of fleeting plunder, but a pledge to use the serpent's kiss for a different purpose. He would transport the orchid and her father's findings to the colonies, to help the sick and bring a new kind of freedom. His days of ruthless piracy were over. He had found a new horizon, and it was one he would build with Ilara. The lonely pirate had waited for pearls, but in the end, the stones had become his greatest treasure. Captain Draven had found his true purpose, not in the glint of gold, but in the heart of a brave woman. His life, once a tempest, had finally found its calm. If you were moved by their journey, be sure to subscribe for more tales of love, adventure, and pirates on the high seas. Don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below.